Welcome to Story Visions. My grandma and grandpa lived in a big, old country farmhouse, and my grandpa was born there, his daddy was born there, his daddy was born there, and his daddy before him, and his daddy before him, and when I was growing up, I was sure it probably just about went back to George Washington. At any rate, it was a great place to go and visit for the holidays. It was always full of the best smells. My grandmother's chocolate chip cookies smelled in every room, and her oatmeal raisin cookies, those sugar cookies that melted in your mouth, and her homemade rolls that were as big as two of your fists put together. And when you put butter on those rolls, it just melted and they just went down your mouth and your throat. So easy. And my grandma made her very own donuts. In that house there were all kinds of nooks and crannies and great places to hide. And around the holidays, while we were waiting for dinner or after dinner, we'd go and play hide and go seek. And sometimes we'd hide in the closet with the creaky old door. And sometimes we'd hide underneath the bed with the cobwebs. And sometimes we'd hide inside Grandma's cedar chest and shut that lid tight. But never, never did we hide at that room at the top of the stairs because we were all sure that there was a ghost in that room at the top of the stairs. All my cousins knew it. We all did because, that used to be Uncle Harry's room, and Uncle Harry, he disappeared. And nobody ever talks about him anymore. So there must be a ghost, and that ghost must have gotten him. We just knew it. But if I'm being honest with you, I would tell you that one time when we were playing hide and go seek and no one was looking at all, and I looked to make sure nobody was watching, I turned that doorknob and I opened that door just the smallest crack, and I peeked inside there and I saw lots and lots of shadows and cobwebs. And I saw the biggest bed you ever saw. It was so big. Why, the mattress was so tall, and the headboard stretched across the whole front of the room and all the way up to the ceiling, and it was made of wood. It looked like a throne bed for a queen or a king. And then I just knew what had happened to Uncle Harry. He hadn't disappeared at all. I knew he was sleeping in that bed, and that headboard had come down and smushed him like a sandwich. And that's how he disappeared, and that's why nobody ever talked about it. And I shut that door quick, and I never went back. Well, when I was about 6 years old, my grandma invited myself and my cousin Mary, she was my bestest friend in all the world, to come and have an overnight with she and Grandpa. We were so excited. We packed our suitcases. My very first overnight. And so anyway, I packed my suitcase and I went to Grandma's house, and she made all my favorite things for dinner, especially those homemade rolls. Oh man, I can still taste them now. And she made rice pudding for dessert. Rice pudding was my favorite. And instead of making donuts, I saw them. She got chocolate Hostess donuts, my favorite. And they were over on the shelf there for breakfast the next morning. And I said, Grandma, please, could we please have one chocolate donut with our rice pudding? And my grandma said, no, I'm sorry, but those are for tomorrow. You can have them for breakfast. Now I knew I should have stopped, because when my grandma says it, you do it. But I wheedled and I begged and I said, Grandma, please, please, they look so good and they're my favorites and there are a lot of them and I just need one and I could dip it in my pudding and it would be so good. Oh, please, Grandma, please. Well, she said, I'll make you a deal. If you and Mary get up tomorrow morning and you put your clothes on right away and you go out and get the eggs for me for breakfast, then you can have a donut tonight and another one with your scrambled eggs in the morning. Well, that sounded like a deal to us. And so we got our donuts with the rice pudding. We ate our dessert and there was time for some games of dominoes. That was the good news and the bad news. Because when you play with my grandma, she always plays to win. She'd never let you win unless you really were winning and you didn't mess with her. Well, my grandma had won several games and it was getting late and I only had one domino left and my turn was coming up when the clock in the hallway struck 9 o'clock and my grandma said, Girls, time for bed. Let's put the dominoes away. Oh, but Grandma, please, please, just one more turn. Now, Margaret, she said, it's time for bed. Put the dominoes away. And that was it. We put those dominoes in that container because if my grandma said it, you did it. So we did. We put on our pajamas and we headed upstairs. We were about halfway up the stairs when it dawned on me, where the heck were we going to sleep? We couldn't sleep with Grandpa because he had the arthritis, so he was in a lot of pain and he needed to sleep by himself. Mary's mommy's old bedroom, well, it was now the sewing room. My daddy's old bedroom was the junk room. All three of us couldn't fit in Grandma's bed. And that only left the room at the top of the stairs, but we just couldn't sleep in there. Not in that room. We couldn't. It couldn't. Our steps got slower and slower and slower. Get a move on, girls. It's bedtime, said Grandma, and she marched us right up those stairs. She opened that door of that room at the top of the stairs and she turned on the light. And it was a very little light. And it gave just a little bit of light to the room. And then she patted that big old bed and she pulled back the covers and she said, Hop on in, girls. And she wasn't kidding. It was a hop. Well, I worked and I worked and I climbed and I hopped in that bed and I knew exactly how the Princess and the Pea felt trying to get up on top of all those mattresses. That's how high it was. Mary climbed in after me. We pulled up those covers as close as we could to our chins and Grandma read us a story. She kissed us on top of our foreheads. And then she turned out the light and she went downstairs. Let's go to sleep really quick, I said, and then we won't hear the ghost and we won't disappear and just then we heard a and we saw the curtains blowing and moving, but there was no wind. And that was enough, and we hopped out of that bed as fast as we could, and we went racing downstairs, and we said, Grandma, Grandma, Grandpa, Grandma, there is a ghost, there is a ghost. We told you there was a ghost, there is a ghost, and we cannot sleep in that room. No way. Girls, said Grandma, there is no such thing as a ghost. Well, she sure sounded like she meant it, and I knew you didn't mess with my grandma. And she marched us right back up to bed, tucked us in that bed, and she read us a story. And another. And Mary, that traitor, fell asleep. Not me. I wasn't falling asleep in that ghosty room. She read another one, and then 2 more, and then 3, and 4. And I was still wide awake. And then she said, Margaret, climb out of bed. Come with me. Well, this was good news. I followed my grandma. We left that ghosty room, and she went right in her room. She pulled back the covers, and she patted the bed for me to climb in. I climbed in Grandma's bed. Well, this was a good deal. I knew that would be a great place to sleep in. Grandma climbed right in after me. And man, I knew I had it good because no old ghost was going to mess with my grandma. No way, Jose. So I laid down and I snuggled up right beside my grandma and I put those covers over my head just for good measure and I went fast asleep. So I knew I was safe. Now the next morning, it was just getting light when we heard and Mary came running into the bedroom and she said, Grandma, Grandma, the ghost got Margaret and she disappeared. I told you there was a ghost. Margaret disappeared. She was in the bed and she's gone. And she was gone. Grandma got her. And just then, I popped out from underneath those covers. Mary was shocked. But not my grandma. My grandma just gave us a hug and said, girls, get your clothes on and go get me some eggs for breakfast. And we sure did. And you know, I should have known all along that there was no ghost in that room because nobody put anything over on my grandma. Not even an old ghost.